the value chain generator is at the very core of the project AlpLinkBioEco, and Professor Berthier at the beginning of their session this morning already introduced Michael Keller, who is lead partner of the School of Engineering and Architecture of Fribourg, together with Professor Andreas Fischer, who is Professor of Computer Science at the Institute for Complex System of the School of Engineering and Architecture of Fribourg. So with them, we'll get closer and deeper on how the work, the VCG work, but also I remind you that we are open for questions, and so there will be space for a Q&A after that. So, Professor Keller.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cabrini, grazie mille. Buongiorno a tutti. Hola a todos, porque me informan que hay gente de España conectada desde España. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. It's a real pleasure for me to open this first session of this morning that is really dedicated to the project's results as such. And Mr. Paterman, wow, I really have to say your enthusiasm for the bioeconomy and for what we have done in this project is absolutely contagious, if we are still allowed to use this term in the current pandemic situation. Let me just share my screen. Excellent. So, welcome to everyone again. We are live streaming this morning from Fribourg in Switzerland on a very beautiful sunny spring morning. And if we would just move a little bit up the hills, we would have a fantastic view on this Finsteraarhorn, the highest mountain of the Bernese Alps. Now you will ask, why would this matter? It does actually matter because some of you are actually sitting exactly on the other side of the Alps today. Our production team, Mr. Cabrini, you are sitting in Milano. And in fact, if you would get up to the highest point of your city, to the cathedral, to the dome of your cathedral, you would have exactly the same view on the exact same mountain. And let this be a symbol for what AlpLinkBioEco stood for and intends to contribute to for the future, getting closer together across the Alpine regions. But let's turn to the proper subject of this conference, creating bio-based value in the Alpine space. Bio is absolutely everywhere, from the products on the shelf of our supermarkets to the bills we receive from our energy providers, from the buzzwords in political debates to the headlines of our newspapers. In the area of innovation and regional development that we are concerned with in our daily business, it is in the form of the concepts of bio and circular economy, as we have perfectly seen in Mr. Paterman's presentation. It is in this form that bio has become an indispensable companion of any researcher, practitioner, or policy maker. We all want a better world for future generations. And the transition from linear fossil fuel-based to a bio-based economy is absolutely recognized as one of the absolutely crucial contributions to, for example, the objectives of the European Green Deal. We all know today that in order to get our projects funded and listened to, the term bio or circular economy will give us good press. And Mr. Paterman, I know that you are and have been for a very long time very enthusiastic about the term bioeconomy. And you could be considered a guru in this field somehow. But as an economist, I have to say that such an omnipresence of a concept in the debates rings my alarm bells. And latest, when I hear talk of gurus being handed round, I really become cautious. Are we heading towards simple buzzwords? Are we heading towards hot air and a lot of empty talk? Here at AlpLinkBioEco, at our project, we are convinced that the answer to this provocative question is actually no. But it is no under the condition that the term bioeconomy is understood in its full sense as an economic principle. If the bioeconomy is to work, the undisputable environmental and societal benefits of turning away from fossil fuel-based models need to be coupled with the potential for value creation at the business level. So let us just very briefly take a look at what we mean from an economic point of view with value creation. Value creation, bio-based value creation in the Alpine space. So what we know, economics, value valued at the business level in what we call value chains. Actors process inputs into outputs, and the business is profitable if the value it creates along this process exceeds the costs of performing the activities. And more globally, we can say that value is created in value chain systems. Value chain systems consisting of a value chain of a single company linked to the value chains of its suppliers and its buyers. Outputs created by economic actors are used by other actors as inputs for additional processes, and so on and so forth. We're talking about a series of complementary activities, input, process, output activities of economic actors. And very simply put, we can say that value chains exist when actors are linked together through mutual benefits. And if we now turn back to our criterion for what a working bioeconomy actually needs to create the potential for value creation at the business level, it becomes clear that what we are looking for in the end is the generation of bio-based value chains, value systems of mutually beneficial economic interactions construed around bio-based resources, bringing together actors as diverse as bio-feedstock producers, intermediate processors, product developers, brand owners, retailers, as has been highlighted very importantly by Mr. Paderman, or product end users. Generation of bio-based value chains is what we are looking for to bring the term bioeconomy to the concrete business level and make it work as an economic principle. And this is exactly and precisely what the value chain generator tool aims at. It is a software tool based on natural language algorithms allowing to match actors from a knowledge base into value chains. The value chain generator does, of course, not work miracles. It cannot create business opportunities where there are no business opportunities out of thin air. It is in its development status at this moment the result of a pretty short period of development, interlinked with a lot of practical application work and forth with our with changes in its functionalities based on the needs that arose during the practical work of our project partners. And it is certainly still far from being its best version in the best of worlds. Nevertheless, we can say that the value chain generator, as we deliver it at the end of this Interact project today, actually provides a big lot of interesting features, as we will see in a minute in more detail. It brings in particular a database on actors and clusters relevant for bio-based value creation. It brings a documentation of existing bio-based value chains. And it brings a documentation of ideas for new value chains, for new business opportunities documented by our project partners. And in addition to all of that, it brings a tool, functionalities to match actors into value chains based on such ideas for business, bio-based business opportunities into existing, growing, or new value chains. And with all of that, I think it is fair to say, at the very least, that the value chain generator helps to shed a lot of light on bio-based business opportunities in the regions of the Alps in the form that we deliver it today. And it is now my great pleasure to give the floor to Professor Andreas Fischer, who led the development team of the value chain generator at the Institute of Complex Systems of the School of Engineering and Architecture in Fribourg, Switzerland. Andreas, I am sure you will have a lot of information that answers the questions of our participants in this conference, the questions about what is this value chain generator concretely all about. So Andreas, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Michael, for this kind introduction. I'm just waiting for the screen to switch. Welcome, everyone. Or shall I say, grüße, bonjour, buongiorno, from Switzerland, here from the foot of the Molaison mountain of the Alps of Fribourg. It's really a pleasure after all these kind words that were said about the VCG. Thank you especially, Dr. Paterman, for your enthusiastic and encouraging comments on the VCG. It's really a pleasure to give you a bit more insight what is actually happening under the hood. But you mentioned it's a complex system. And it's true that there is some complexity going on. Before going into that complexity, let me ask you a very simple question. What is a software? Well, don't worry, it's not a classroom, so I will just answer myself. It is basically a process that takes input data, processes it, and produces some output data. Why? Because the output data is somehow more valuable than the input data. I'm pretty sure in economy this reminds you of a concept, and we will see that in a minute also at the heart of the VCG. And with that, I will start sharing my slides with you, which should happen about now. So when we began thinking about the VCG, evidently for the software, data was the key. We had to know what is the data we are working with, what is the data we want to produce, why, and we came up with this model that has the form of a pyramid. And yes, probably we were inspired by the nice mountains of the Alpine region when we designed this. Let's start with the top of the mountain. This is what the software finally should produce. This is the goal that we wanted to achieve. What we call biolinks is a match between two actors, A and B, that are linked together in the most easiest way. Actor A providing some output that is interesting for actor B as an input. This might be two companies, for example, as part of a larger value chain. So our vision was to go really to become practical, as it was said several times before, to go at the level of the concrete actor and see, can we bring two such actors together? And then if we can do that, of course, we can add 3, 4, 5 and more into a longer value chain. Now, to achieve that, we started at the bottom of the pyramid and collected data about the actors in the economies of our partner regions. So we had the chance to work together with experts, with cluster managers that knew their actors pretty well. You can see that there's a list of names, addresses, which also helps us to put them at a geographic location. And it could be a small, medium enterprise. We also added information about the category. You have heard it before. We were interested in 4 main categories: wood, agro, packaging, and chemistry. And what we also added to this information was NACE codes. NACE codes are industry standards in the European Union that tell us what a company is doing. It tells us especially what a company mainly is doing at the beginning of its activities. In this project, the experts clearly saw that probably having one NACE code for each actor is a bit limiting, because most of the actors actually have many activities. So we started also to put many such NACE codes to the actors. And this, as a computer scientist, was very nice for me to work with, because we like codes, they are clear. But very early in the project, we actually saw that going from this actors' information to our biolinks, there was a certain gap in between that we could not bridge. We simply did not have the quality of the data that was necessary to actually link two actors together. And this is where we inserted this idea of inputs, processes, and outputs, as I've explained the software before, at the level of an actor. So all the experts in the consortium contributed this data by thinking about key players in their clusters. What kind of inputs are they receiving? How are those inputs processed? And what kind of outputs are produced? And how to do that? We didn't have codes to describe it because they don't exist yet. Probably they should exist in the future to make a digital system work a bit quicker and more precise. But in this project, we allowed the partners to describe in natural language what is happening. And the challenge then for the software, for the VCG, was to use this natural language in order to link together two actors, A and B, propose potential links, ideas to generate new biolinks in the Alpine region. So this is the part about data. What can the software do? It has 2 main functionalities actually, and the first functionality is finding those new biolinks. What you can see displayed here is our graphical interface that is provided to the users that puts as nodes in this chain concrete actors, or more precisely, these descriptors we have been discussing. So in this descriptor here, you can see meat and poultry, livestock as input, and you can see meat products, etc. as outputs. One such node is attributed to a particular actor, but of course, this node represents many actors who could actually do the same or similar processes. Afterwards, what is possible in the tool is simply to click on such a green node, and the system will go into the database and see who might be interested in that particular output. And if you can find another actor that can continue the value chain, you begin to build it horizontally from left to right. And you can also branch out and create quite intricate value chains. So the interesting aspect about that, and Dr. Pateman mentioned it, underlined it, of course, if multiple regions work together, as it was the case in the AlpLinkBioEco project, these links, they go across the border. So it can be useful within a region, but it can especially be useful by a simple click and a simple line drawn to go from one geographical region into the other. Another aspect of why the VCG was helping this collaborative work across several regions was that all the partners basically had access to the same tool. So they could also be inspired by ideas that other people thought of and then try to import such an idea in their own region. And I believe this was a very strong effect why these 11 showcases in the end came alight, because there was a good exchange across all the experts in the project. So this is the first functionality. And the second functionality is going instead of horizontally in this value chain vertically, and asking the question, well, if actor A can do something like that, are there maybe alternatives? Are there maybe more actors, or maybe an actor in my region who could actually do the same? And for that, we have implemented an interface where you can simply click on one of those nodes, and the system will show you on a map actors that are somehow esteemed to be similar to the one you have been working with. And this concept of similarity is where the natural language processing comes into play. So basically what we do in the database is we analyze the NACE codes, of course, but we also analyze all the natural language texts about the descriptors that have been added by our human experts into the database. And using some matching algorithm, we can come up with a similarity value, trying to push the actors that are most likely to be a relevant alternative to the top. Besides that, of course, you have also simple filters. For example, the geographical distance. If in your value chain idea, it's important that a certain actor is nearby, you can actually confine the search to a certain region. So these were the two functionalities. Who is actually using these functions? Well, the primary user of the VCG are cluster managers. They know their region, they know their enterprises, they know what they are doing, and they can actually use this VCG to find new ideas, to think about what is possible in my region, or if I work together with another region, what could we do together? And by adding data to the system, and I can say at this moment we have about 2,000 actors in our database, so it's already grown quite a bit. It's the cluster managers who can find these ideas, who can approach the companies, talk with them, suggest the idea to them, and see if a new value chain idea in the bio-based economy can be implemented. This software is as open as possible. First of all, there is a demo version available. I put you here the link and also the QR code. You can have a look online. You can play around. You can, of course, not enter data or change anything, but you get a feeling of what is behind this software. If you want to see the live version, you have to contact one of the project partners, because each of the project partners actually has access to a live version in which the actors are not anonymized, but in which the actors are real, and you can discuss with project partners of a certain region if you can use the tool for an idea you have. And essentially, you can also ask them if you are interested in building a new software, if you can have the code, because the code of the software we also made available to all project partners in the spirit of putting out the idea and hoping the idea is taken by others, by more people, and spread across the Alpine region. And with that, I permit myself as a computer scientist to give a little outlook where we would like to develop the system in the future. So recently, just a few weeks ago, there was a nice master thesis effectuated in our group with a nice catchy title, Who Am I? And the idea here was to go on the internet and read what companies say about themselves and try to understand what kind of company that is. For example, what is the NACE code of that company? Or is this company a similar company to another? And this would clearly offer nice opportunities to grow our database in a very smooth way using only public data. Because let me ask you another very silly question. What is a web page? Well, a web page is a document. It's written by a human, and the intention is that a human can read it. It's where the company presents itself to the world and says, that's me, with text, with images, with all the information around. And we believe with nowadays technology, and this master thesis really showed it, it's possible not only for humans to interpret this kind of communication, but also for the machine. And if the machine understands what kind of company is behind a certain website, we believe there is a huge potential to quite naturally actually use the current trend of digitization and grow such a database even further. So this is maybe the difference between the current state and the future state of such a project. At the moment, we have high quality data entered by human experts, and they led to impressive results. But one might only wonder what would happen if you input a lot more data to the system, especially if it's possible to link the quantity of the data out there with the quality of the data we already have. We are pretty sure that there is quite some potential concerning research and eventually also the concrete economy. And with that, I would like to warmly thank the whole team at iCoSys who has developed this software over the past years. And a very special thanks, Michael, to you, and also to Ulrich Daum. I remember a lot of brainstorming sessions, especially before the pandemic, where we spent hours and hours to conceptualize this VCG. So in a way, you were also one of the architects of this software. Thank you. And I believe this is all I can say on short notice about the system. I hope it clarified a little bit what happens under the hood.
Thank you so much, Andreas. I am absolutely sure it actually did. And I really have to say you have this rigor of a mathematician that I so much appreciate in research collaborations. It's just fantastic to listening to you. What I noticed, and I knew, of course, already, is that you have plenty of ideas on how the value chain generator can actually be improved already. What might be possible if we can even take further steps ahead. So this is fantastic news, but I would still like to focus for a few more minutes on what we actually have right now, because I'm sure that the participants of this conference are very much interested in getting some more clarity about what are the versions that exist right now for this tool, and probably also to get a first real world and live glimpse into the tool. And this is what I would like to do during the next few minutes. So let me just share the screen again. And you tell me if this is not working, but I guess it certainly should. So we have this value chain software tool that is out there waiting to be discovered, to be improved, to be used to document bio-based business opportunities with your own data that you might possess and put into the system, or to simply be applied to different contexts in new projects. And as Andreas Fischer said, the first version in which we actually give this tool away is in the form of the source code, which we will make available under a permissive software license for all of you out there to be adapted and used as you see fit, because we really want to cross-fertilize across the Alpine region, but also other regions of Europe with our results. But then in addition to that, we also deliver a web-based, directly usable format of the tool. And this in two versions, as has been explained, a demo version and a live version with personalized access. Most important slide here, again, with the link so that you can discover everything that we will have been talking about now on your own. So feel free to take a look at the web-based version of this tool for yourself. This is what the entry to this platform, to this web-based platform, looks like. On the right side, you have the access for users with a personalized login and belonging to a specific user groups. At the moment, these are our project partners, which will be able to continue using the software in the live version and expand the database with personalized access and their own data. But it is, of course, possible to add new users. We invite you to join our venture with your own data. Each user group will have access to its own data in this database that we will continue to host. Proprietary data of all the other user groups will be anonymized, so you will be able to use this system with your own data and have access to the data that you actually own and put into the system. Nevertheless, even if the data of other users is anonymized, all entries of the database indicate the user that is owning the respective data in order to facilitate the generation of value chains across regions and clusters so that you can get in touch with other users who might disclose information that is anonymized in such a case. And since this live version is restricted to users with their own data in the system, there is actually at this point nothing to be shown publicly in this conference. But of course, you're all invited to get in touch with us and consider using this live platform with your own data in the future. But on the left side of the platform, you will see that you have a link to the demonstrator version of the tool. And this demo version allows to access all entries of the database as they have been developed during the AlpLinkBioEco project in a fully anonymized format. No real actor names are disclosed in the demo, and map entries, as you will see, have been relocated randomly so that actors cannot be identified with their real name. Of course, this means this full anonymization, that the functionalities are somehow restricted a bit in the demo version, but its intention is precisely to give a first insight, to show what functionalities are actually available, even if they cannot perform to their full and best possible form. So what I propose is to simply give it a try now. We will probably have the demonstrator effect and certain things will not work as planned, but let's give it a try. I will simply give you a very quick click through showing you where to find the main features that this tool brings in its current demo version. And this is, as I have said before already, a database on actors and clusters, a documentation of existing bio-based value chains and of ideas for new value chains, and then a tool functionalities, the two functionalities that Professor Fischer has shown to match actors into value chain system. I will now go to the screen with the tool. Let me share this with you and let me know if it is not working. Otherwise, we just go ahead.
That's fine.
This is our platform, as we have said on the right, the personalized login that we cannot show publicly, but for which we invite you to get in touch. And on the left side, the demonstrator version. Demonstrator version looks like this. My screen on this laptop that I'm using is pretty small, so if you're using a bigger laptop, the graphic representation of the tool will actually be a bit better than what you see on my very small screen here. So the database is directly accessible at the top of the tool organized in these three menu features: clusters, actors, and biolinks. Let's have a very quick look at clusters. You have a list of clusters that have been put into the system as being relevant for bio-based economy. And with the difference to actors, clusters have not been anonymized. So what we have here is actually a huge and very relevant inventory of clusters, cluster initiatives, and other intermediate organizations that our partners have esteemed to be relevant for bio-based value chains. On the map, you can also see how they are distributed. You can click on different clusters, take a look at descriptions that have been put in, and very interesting also estimations by our project partners for each cluster on how many actors are active in these clusters. We are organizing these clusters for each of the NACE codes of these industry classifications. So a pretty detailed analysis of clusters relevant for the bioeconomy available under clusters. Now, even if actors are contrary to clusters anonymized in our database, it is still very interesting to take a look at this. You see here, actors are all completely anonymized. We have a huge list of actors in the database, more than 2,000 actors, actually. If we take a look at the map, this is probably even more impressive. All of these actors have been put into the database by our project partners as being potentially at least relevant for the bioeconomy. And you can see the number indicates who the project partner is that owns this data, who should be contacted if you would like to get further information on what is behind such an entry. And as you can see, we were a project working on the Alpine space, but the covered geographic territory is actually even bigger. Some of our project partners have started to actually gather data outside of the Alpine region. You can see that there is even an entry down here in Spain. I have, to be fully honest, to admit that it was myself who placed it there in order to be able to find it on first sight in this demonstration here. So let's take a look, for example, at what you can see on an actor. And two of them are here. Let's see if it's the right one. Actor anonymized, but we can see in which industry classification this actor is active. So here we have an actor that is raising sheep and goats. There is a descriptor linked to this actor. So we have more than 2,000 actors. For more than 500 of them, a detailed description of this input process output model is available. So we see here that this actor is using feed to feed his sheep, raising sheep, and as outputs of his value chain has wool and sheep wool, and another time sheep wool. So pretty interesting. So we have sheep somewhere in Spain, but why is this in our database? What kind of bio-based business opportunities can arise from sheep wool? And this question brings me to the third level of the database here on top of the menu, the list of biolinks. As presented by Andreas Fischer, these biolinks are the individual relationships, economic links between at least two of the actors of our database. Economic links for bio-based value chains that have either been confirmed as commercially successful or can also be ideas that entered by our project partners, ideas for possibilities for actors to work together surrounding a concrete bio-based business opportunity idea. So we have this inventory, very interesting for future users, of everything that our partners have gathered of knowledge of ideas for bio-based business opportunities with the actors of the database, existing examples of working links, of working value chains, and a lot of ideas for what could work in the future. And if we want to go back to our sheep, let's see if something is in for sheep. We can look for sheep, and we see that indeed someone has put the idea to use sheep wool keratin for bioplastics for the production of tough and functional packaging films into the system. So a concrete bio-based business opportunity entered for concrete actors of our database in here. And if we take a closer look at it, we can actually see whether the partner that entered this information estimated if this is a successful biolink, if this is something that is already working, what the success probability for replications would be. And we see that this is a link that worked, a link that is confirmed, that has been tested, and that seems to exist somewhere in the Alpine region or beyond. So this type of information is available in this huge biolink list here. And finally, since we are talking about this idea of sheep wool keratin, this brings me to the last point that I would like to show to you. Keratin interests me very much because in my home region here in the canton of Fribourg, we don't have a lot of sheep, but we have actually a lot of chicken and poultry. We're one of the biggest producers per capita of poultry in Switzerland. And sheep wool has keratin in it that can be used for bioplastics. Chicken feathers can also be a source of keratin that could similarly be used for bioplastics. So let's now turn to the functionalities as such, to the two functionalities that Professor Fischer has introduced. We have regrouped them under the menu Biolink Explorer. The Biolink Explorer, the graphical tool to actually turn such an idea using chicken feather keratin for bioplastics into a value chain system by adding and matching actors to this idea, both horizontally and vertically. So let's turn to the Biolink Explorer, accessible here or also on the homepage of the value chain generator directly by clicking on an example here of a graph. Let's start a new one just to show very quickly what this is all about. I told you that I'm interested in poultry in the canton of Fribourg, so I can use the filter here. I could use a lot of other filters to actually identify the descriptors I want to start my idea with. I am looking for poultry. Do I have a poultry farmer, someone who can provide the poultry? Yes, there is one in the system. So let's add that to the value chain generator explorer graph. As Andreas Fischer has shown, we now have the inputs and the outputs with these green marks, and we can start the similarity search for complementary actors that could actually use something that is described in a similar way as poultry or chicken to see if we have complementarity on the horizontal level. For poultry, you will see again, I can use a lot of filters. I could even remove poultry as a criterion and only search for something completely manual. If I have an actor, concrete actor in mind, I want to add a concrete actor. But let's just say, let's look for something similar as poultry. And we have actually entries in the database that use what we have as an output from our first descriptor as an input for their value chain. We have actors that use meat and poultry as inputs, and we have a great many of them. So let's choose one without going into detail. Let's choose one and add it here. This is a poultry slaughterhouse that can use the living chicken and will have as an output, for example, the chicken feathers of the keratin of which we would like to continue our value chain. So let's see whether we also have something for chicken feathers. And here we always have perfect similarity because the terms are really perfectly in line. For other more complex issues, there might be some kind of searching necessary, the need to use the filters really to identify what type of actors are in the database that could be interesting here. But to take an example not from our home region, but maybe from another region, I know that there is an actor from Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes that is interested in using chicken feathers for the valorization of bird feathers into bio-based plastics. So we could, for example, add this actor here to our bio-based value chain system idea. Let's make it smaller again. And this is the way in which horizontally we can expand our value chains. And in addition to that, as Professor Fischer said, at each step of this value chain system idea, it might be possible to want to add more actors for the same type of activity. So to grow this value chain system, not horizontally, but also vertically. Can I find someone that is described in a similar way in the database as the actor that we started this exercise with, for example? And for this, I can click on the actor, go on search alternatives, use any type of filters. This is someone that I want to have in a maximum distance, for example, because I would like to have local alternatives. to keep the transportation and logistic ways short. All type of filters that I can add that will give me a list of actors that are described in a similar way than the actor that is already placed in the value chain system. So if I, for example, choose this one, I can mark it as similar and it will be added vertically at the same step of the value chain. So these are these two functionalities. I'm sure there will be plenty of questions to which Andreas Fischer can give the technical answers in a second. I just wanted to show you briefly where these things are. Again, we have database on clusters, database on actors. We have this documentation of existing working biolinks and of ideas for biolinks, which is really a treasure for exploring new ideas, new possibilities. And then we have this graphical tool that can help to put ideas together in a graphical way and expand both horizontally and vertically. What is not possible in the demonstrator version is to save my work. In the live version, of course, it would be possible to save. What is, however, possible to do in the demonstrator version is to take a look at the list of graphs that have already been worked on by our project partners during the project. And just to conclude my short presentation here, let's turn to one that I particularly like, a cross-regional example involving the autonomous region of Trentino, the Austrian region of Upper Austria, and the region of Bavaria. So a nice cross-regional example, and take a look at that. It's a really small piece of art, so complex and so big that it does not fit on my screen. So this would be my short overview on the value chain generator. Let me conclude with my slides. Thank you. Let's say all together, make the bioeconomy work, make a better future for the next generations, and help to create thriving businesses across the Alps based on bio-based business opportunities. And we invite all of you to join us in this experiment in the future.
Well, Michael Keller and Andreas Fischer, thank you so much for that. In a few minutes, we'll see also pilot experience and from the voice of people that were into the project. But first of all, let me ask a couple of questions coming from the audience. The first one comes from me. So how do you see the future of the VCG? And I add a couple of points that were made by the audience. First, do you feel like that the VCG could be more mainstream, so could be used also in a different way, not just for bioeconomy use? And the other one is, how are you planning to grow the database?
I might take the first one and give the second one to Andreas, because he already indicated some elements on this. On the first one, yes, absolutely. The tool is out there with the functionalities as they are presented. Is oriented towards the bio-based economy because the database that we have put together has been organized in this way and with this specific target. But yes, of course, it can be used for any type of activities. Especially interesting, I would say, to go into the direction of circular economy, circular bioeconomy, to explore this kind of terrain. The tool also includes in its current state in the descriptors, in the way to describe actors, the possibility to actually designate whether a certain output of a process is currently a waste or a side stream and could be used in more circular value chains. So I see also a huge potential for going into the direction of circular economy or any type of other value chain ideas.
Andreas?
Yes, so growing the database is, from a computer science point of view, the most important thing to do. So thank you for this question. What we did during the project, if you want, is to build one mountain, the one that we have seen for the bio-based economy with the different layers. But what we would like to see indeed is a whole mountain range, let's say the Alps, full of such databases that can be treated by the VCG in a similar way. It can basically be used, it's a general purpose software, I would say, as long as the elements can be stated as input, process, output. Even that in the future might even be alleviated a little bit, but the concept is that if you are in a certain economy and you want to bring parties together, you can describe them, and you can use the tool for it. I can only encourage thinking about where outside the bio-based economy the tool might be interesting. Technically speaking, I don't see many constraints to growing the database further with other data. What I would advise at this point is the high quality of the human data is not to be underestimated. We are talking a lot about high quantity of data these days. It's the big data area, and data is everywhere. But we were very much aware of the fact that in order to make the system work, a certain quality has to be assured. So for growing the database, it would be really important to include experts from the industry. For the sector that is chosen, it is possible afterwards to grow the mountain with more data. Let's say you crawl the internet, you crawl Facebook, you crawl LinkedIn, web pages, whatever you want. You ask the countries for data about companies. And yes, it is possible to try to automatically integrate that into the database. But this is my personal recommendation out of our experience in this project. Never forget the experts and the high quality data.
Right. Just a couple of final questions. First, do you think, Michael, that it will be possible to have agreements between users group to be able to use the VCG in partnering way? And the other one is, do you think that this tool could be integrated in other platforms where demand and supply actors can match, like the European Enterprise Networks platform?
All right, I will take the first one again. Yes, very interesting question. As we said, the live version is organized in user groups. Each user group owns the data it puts into the system and as a consequence has access to this data. If different partners, different groups, for example, 2 clusters, agree among each other that they want to share the data in the system, to have more options, to explore more value chains, to have more functionalities available in the system, it is up to them to indicate to us on a technical level, we would like to actually be in the same user group. Respectively, we would like to give the members of the other user group access to the data that is owned by our user group. All of that is technically possible. We encourage everyone to actually try to share as many data as possible because it will make the experience much more interesting and the results certainly more promising.
Okay.
Andreas, do you have a comment on the second question?
I might ask you to repeat that one, sorry.
Well, the question was, let me repeat it. And do you think that this tool could be integrated in other platforms where demand and supply can match, for example, the European Enterprise Networks platform?
Indeed. I don't know that platform in particular. But what I can say is that we have a rather lightweight application on our end. It is a database and a web-based application. And to interchange data between other platforms is a mere technicality. I believe the more important point here is the political reality, the desire of people to exchange data. And I think this is where future ideas also have to start, finding groups of people who believe that data sharing has value, decide who owns the data, what happens with the data, and then combine it into a common platform.
All right, so we have to wrap it up. We have to leave it there because there's another session. Michael Keller, I leave to you to moderate the next one.